Being and Caring, A Psychology for Living by Victor Daniels and Laurence J. Horowitz, as read by The Happy President. Part 2, Connecting with Others. Chapter 10, Power and Assertion. In power lies the freedom to make decisions and choose our directions. We express our power in our work, our relationships, and our creativity. Yet, notes Rollo May, we also view power with suspicion. They use it to dominate others, and us, when they get a chance. They are power-driven, but we are motivated only by benevolence, reason, and morality. We hesitate to confront issues of power, partly because if we did, we would come face to face with our own sense of powerlessness, our struggle to affect what happens in important areas of our lives. Violence is often a conclusion of power hunger. Some of the people in our prisons are those who, after years or decades of unsuccessful attempts to overcome social and economic discrimination, finally explode into antisocial behavior. Behind some, but not all, violent acts is an impotent cry for help, a desperate exercise of some kind of power somewhere that will have an impact on someone somehow, however counterproductive. When I feel powerful, I'm more confident and more optimistic. But power can also mask insecurity, so that people who feel inadequate may compensate by pursuing power over others. And if I feel ineffectual, getting hold of power may help me ward off threats. The contradiction is that I'm still insecure, not dealing effectively with what I most need to deal with. In addition, my attempts to dominate others are likely to lead them to retaliate or otherwise resist my influence, which both feeds my insecurity and distracts me from feeling and facing it. Dimensions of power. This chapter is about the use of power in assertive ways that encourage and respect others' rights. Power includes self-determination, having observable influence in matters important to us, and possessing authority commensurate with our responsibility. Ideally, Carl Rogers would guide us to trust our own power, to feel no need to have power over, and to exercise our power in a cooperative rather than competitive way. The socially and economically oppressed would applaud these goals and their own participation in realizing them. Power and control. Power, as defined here, is a capacity to energize, to move. Control is a statement of direction. Imagine that you and I are at a control panel inside a vehicle. Each of us has charge of certain instruments and levers. You're responsible for control, and I'm responsible for power. You decide where we go and the route we take. I decide how much energy we have to get there, if and when we move, and how fast we go. I can use my control in at least two ways. Compulsive control is a clamping down that channels energy in a narrow way. I push and squeeze all my power into those directions. Centered control comes from a deeper contact with myself, in which I trust my directions and my use of power. When I'm in touch with what I need for me and what others around me need for them, I can focus energy in directions that meet these needs. There is also compulsive uncontrol, actively refusing to exercise any guidance or direction. The paradox is that the more compulsively I control, the more likely I am to go out of control and be less able to spontaneously meet my needs and the needs of those around me. Power doesn't mean, points out editor and writer Michael Korda, winning every argument or resorting to verbal or physical violence. It means standing up for yourself in what matters to you. It means compromising where you can live with the compromise, expressing your desires, feelings, and needs openly. In short, behaving like an adult, equal human being, and being treated like one. Sources of power. Social psychologists John French and Bertram Raven, who define power as potential influence, identified 6 different sources of power. Informational power is exercised through providing new information or a new perspective. Its principal value is in an expanded view. Reward power involves the ability to give others something they want if they do what I want them to do. Coercive power involves the capacity to punish others when they don't do as I wish. In that role, I may be feared, resented, or disliked. Expert power differs from informational power in that the expert continues to be a needed source. For example, my doctor and my mechanic are experts. Referent power exists when we're members of the same group, like a minister who acts as he thinks a minister should. Referent, or role-designated power, is also involved when we identify with or refer to someone we admire, as when a person dresses like a favorite celebrity. Negative referent influence occurs when we react against thinking, looking, or acting like someone we dislike. Legitimate power is accepted authority. Legitimate power is evident in military units, industrial organizations, governmental agencies, where it is clear who has power over whom. There's also the legitimate power of the powerless, like a blind person asking for assistance. Even if I'm in a hurry, I'll probably do what's asked. Power in ongoing relationships. In some relationships, there is a continuing, uneven distribution of power, when one person, the initiator, makes most of the decisions and the other, the participator, goes along with them. In other relationships, there is an apparent unevenness. The apparently less powerful person actually finds ways to exercise power too. Much of this chapter explores ways we can articulate our wants and be heard. People, adults and children, men and women, feel devalued when they're expected to give in and seek veiled ways to exercise power. One way to do that is from the position of victim, by using guilt. Another way is to develop a handicap or symptom that others have to make allowance for. Clinical psychologist Jay Haley, who views many symptoms as tactics, points out that often a symptom is an unconscious way of resolving a power struggle. This is often the case with compulsions. It is a compulsion. I can't control it. One woman was given to compulsive hand washing in response to an extremely controlling husband. He forbade her to wash her hands, but to no avail because it was an involuntary compulsion, and she could use it to oppose him on almost any issue. There's always a price for yielding our power and our rights, or for usurping those of others. I may adopt an underdog position in which, even though I don't get what I want, I make sure you won't either by finding subtle ways to sabotage your undertakings. Control that assumes direction for another person's life sometimes is disguised. In a pseudo-benevolent dictatorship, for example, I give you what I've decided you want and then applaud myself for being so generous. If you're not equally appreciative, you should be ashamed of yourself for your ingratitude. One way you can handle my phony benevolence is by thanking me but firmly stating that you prefer to determine the nature of my gift or favor. It's so thoughtful of you to give me the food processor. Monday, I'll exchange it for season tickets to the theater. If I'm really trying to please you rather than control you, I'll accept the change. Otherwise, my dictatorial ways stand unmasked. What assertion is and isn't. How do you ask for what you want? Do you sit around hoping someone will know what you want and give it to you? Do you hug someone when you want an embrace? Or do you stand there afraid to ask for a hug or to give one? When I'm not willing to ask directly for what I want, I seldom get it. When I ask, I may get it or I may not, but I've established my caring for myself and my trust in others by asking. I can ask myself, how am I stopping myself from getting what I want, and how can I be good to myself now? I might feel afraid that if I assert myself by saying that I'd like to share some time with you, you'll reject me. If I feel worthless and you turn me down, clearly I'm not good enough. The worse I feel about myself, the more susceptible I am to feeling rejected. I may, of course, have a stake in feeling worthless. It's a great way to avoid having either of us expect anything from me. No one can reject me unless I buy into feeling rejected. If a person wants to do something other than be with me, that's a statement about him or her. I can go right on feeling good about me. Years ago, when I was a single man, one evening I was sitting in a cafe with a lovely woman. We were getting tired and ready to go home. I said, "I'll gladly come home with you if you invite me." She laughed and said, "No thanks, but I'm glad you asked." We both felt good as we parted. My statement was phrased so that we could both feel at ease with whatever reply she wanted to make. We can make our statements in ways that fit us and leave others room to apply in ways that fit them. When I speak clearly and directly, others usually respect me and often feel attracted to me. By contrast, to be self-sacrificing when I don't want to is no service to others because I feel resentful toward them and resentful toward me when I do that. Once I was visiting a hospital ward when a badly burned child who'd been there a long time was calling the nurse. She was busy with another patient, had been going at a hectic pace, and obviously needed a few moments by herself. Hearing the child call, she looked at him, saw that he was in no pain or danger, and said, "Georgie, I need me now." The boy understood. I've always got something that I can give myself if I'm willing to do it. I hate getting stuck in traffic and sometimes get angry when I do. But I also know that wherever I am, even in a morass of concrete and steel, it's a chance to listen to music or watch people in the cars around me. I still resent getting stuck in traffic, but I can do something for myself while I'm there. Non-assertion and aggression. If I'm so timid that I seldom get what I want, or so aggressive and belligerent that I offend people and turn them off, I can learn to express myself more effectively. Asserting myself is asking for what I want, or acting to get what I want in a way that respects both of us. As Alberti and Emmons point out, it's the middle way between timid holding back and inconsiderate tromping on other people's toes. I respect myself by asking for what I want. I respect you by recognizing your right to fulfill or not fulfill my request. Respect doesn't imply automatic approval of what you say or do. Automatic agreement and unquestioning approval are forms of deference. I may defer to you when I'm only mildly invested in the issue or when I appease you to avoid conflict no matter what. At times, deference may be appropriate, but only if it doesn't involve sacrificing my self-respect. Assertion is an antidote to such holding back, in which I want to reach out or to ask for what I want, but I'm hesitant to, as in shyness. Assertion also differs from aggression. When I forget that assertion involves respect for your desires and rights as well as mine, I may become aggressive, perhaps not recognizing your right to refuse my request or to ask me for what you want. The purposes of aggression, write Nelson and Isbell, are domination and intimidation. Aggression degrades, belittles, or humiliates the other person. It may be direct or indirect, as with deception, seduction, or manipulation. The basic message, adds Arthur Lang and Patricia Jagupowski, is, "This is what I think, you're stupid for believing differently. This is what I want, what you want isn't important. This is what I feel, your feelings don't count." Fear and shyness in non-assertion and aggression. Paradoxically, both non-assertive and aggressive requests and refusals frequently are based on fear. People who demand or refuse aggressively are apt to be afraid that otherwise they won't get what they want. Aggressive people fear being vulnerable or losing control of events if they present themselves differently. So aggression may cover an underlying uncertainty, and in some cases, it even masks shyness. The fears that underlie non-assertion are more obvious. I may be afraid you'll turn me down if I ask for what I want, so I don't ask. I may fear the pain of getting close to another person and then having the relationship end, or I may be afraid to get close at all. Such fears play a crucial role in shyness, declares social psychologist Philip Zimbardo. I may also be afraid that you'll get angry or retaliate if I refuse your request, or that I'll be aggressive if I try to be assertive. Shyness, Zimbardo points out, is widespread. 8 out of 10 people he surveyed reported that they were shy at some point in their lives. 4 out of 10 said they were presently shy. Since most shy people have a low sense of self-esteem, writes Zimbardo, they learn to avoid any situation that may be potentially embarrassing, thereby further isolating themselves from other people. Shyness involves not only fears of being embarrassed or humiliated in front of others, but also a deficiency in social skills that make contacts with others easier. Becoming more assertive can include developing appropriate social skills. The nature of assertion. When I'm assertive, I'm offering myself to you as clearly and honestly as I know how, without dominating, manipulating, judging, or ridiculing you. I'm hoping to level with you in a way you can hear, one that doesn't trigger your defensiveness. Lang and Jagupowski write, "The basic message in assertion is this. This is what I think. This is what I feel. This is how I see the situation." Examples are, "I'll need some time to think that over before I give you an answer." "Wait, I want to finish what I'm saying," and "Sorry, but I won't be able to do that tomorrow." In aspiring to become more assertive, however, we confront a contradiction. Honesty is valued as an ultimate good and tact is valued as an ultimate achievement of maturity. Tact is a way of stating what I want with the wisdom of grace and good taste. I change the shading but not the color of what I say. While tact is often necessary and appropriate, it need not subvert my ability to make the statements I need to make. I can assert myself directly, and I can be tactfully assertive when each is called for. Much of my movement toward effectively assertive communication depends on how well I integrate the following necessary, if risky, attitudes. 1. This is how I feel, logical, reasonable, or not. 2. I may change my mind, be confused, or even be making a mistake. If so, I don't need to punish me or you. 3. Though I appreciate applause, it's not critical now. 4. I am responsible for my doings, feelings, and to some extent the outcomes of my interactions with others. 5. I can assess the degree to which other people's issues and problems are also my responsibility. Forms of assertiveness. This section describes different kinds of assertive responses, and the next section deals with how to practice and use them. Direct statements of wants and feelings. I want statements. These are just what they sound like. I want statements include both I want to and I want you to, using language that fits your own style. I'd appreciate a call if you're going to be late. Even if you refuse my request, I'm relieved of the conflict of wanting, being afraid to ask, and worrying about how you'll respond. People sometimes misinterpret statements of wants or preferences as non-negotiable demands. Jagupowski and Lang suggest 3 ways to reduce the likelihood of this happening. First, I can also ask about your preferences or your willingness to do what I ask. I'd like to see Star Wars. How do you feel about going? Or, would you be willing to get together for half an hour this afternoon? Second, I can quantify my wants on a scale of slight to intense. I badly need to stay home and rest tonight. Or, I lean slightly towards staying home tonight. Third, I can explicitly state what my I want statement does and doesn't mean. I'd rather go to Florida this Christmas than to visit your parents in North Dakota. That's a preference, not an ultimatum. I feel statements. First, I describe some specific behavior of yours and then tell you how I feel about it. When you touch me and talk to me the way you did this morning, my love for you just bubbles over. Mixed feeling statements. When I have ambivalent feelings about something, I can describe them both simultaneously or mention my strong feelings about something first, let that sink in, and then describe my qualifying feelings. In some cases, when I lump them together, my strong feelings can seem invalidated by my modified ones. At other times, it's important to state them together. It was a wonderful evening. I enjoyed your company immensely, and I would feel sleazy going to bed with my best friend's husband. I feel and mixed feeling statements are self-disclosing assertions. I tell you something about events inside of me that provide the basis for my response. Empathic assertion. Empathic assertion, a term coined by Patricia Jagupowski, is a way I can show some sensitivity to you at the same time that I'm making my request. It includes 2 parts. First, recognition of your situation, feelings, wants, or beliefs, and second, a statement of my own. For instance, I appreciate your desire to have me along, and yet I need to make my own decision. Saying no. Saying no is a way we protect ourselves against excessive demands, differentiate our own priorities from other people's, and define our identity. Many of a 2-year-old no's translate as, I'm a separate person, please respect that, as the youngster evolves a sense of self. My saying no to you may reflect my need to say yes to me. Confrontation. Confrontation is appropriate when a discrepancy exists between your words and deeds, or between your actions and my legitimate expectations. To many people, the word confrontation suggests attack. Sometimes that's so, but only in aggressive confrontation, which involves accusing and trying to intimidate or manipulate others. Assertive confrontation, by contrast, involves my describing your behavior and describing its effects on you, me, and others, and, where appropriate, asking for what I want. Dale, your 20-minute coffee breaks have been averaging 3/4 of an hour. I find myself thinking dark thoughts about you. If you need more time on one break, I'd like you to keep a written record of it and make it up on another break. Such a confrontation clears the air when it's specific. Vagueness here is a form of withholding and creates a new set of issues. Where the discrepancy is between your words and actions, assertive confrontation includes describing what you said you'd do. Trudy, you said you'd keep Friday evenings clear for us to spend together, but something else came up twice this month. I feel frustrated and neglected. I'd like you to stick by our agreement or renegotiate it. Confrontation can involve giving someone information he or she doesn't seem to have or to grasp fully. Here, I confront the discrepancy between what you think the results of your actions are and what the information you don't have shows them to be. Ted, the city comptroller, says that if the tax bill you're supporting passes, the school's finances will be hurt so badly that our kids will have to go across town to Parkside. Do you think it's worth it? Another kind of confrontation involves letting you know when I experience you differently from the way I hear you envisioning yourself. I ask you to consider another point of view. Ellen, you may think the cold way you told off Joe showed everybody he's beneath you, but I like your gentler, caring side better. Egan describes 2 other situations in which confrontation is appropriate. He calls one of them strength confrontation, pointing out abilities a person has but doesn't recognize. Sam, you keep saying you wish you had more personality. I see you as the best liked guy in the shop. The other side of that is weakness confrontation, identifying what someone doesn't do or is doing poorly. Gina, I'd like to hear you more often in meetings. Your excellent ideas are useless if you don't mention them. Confrontation is most likely to be effective when it's based on the understanding of the other person's interests. Confrontation alone doesn't settle things, but rather identifies what needs to be settled, and we may need to negotiate how to do that. Managing criticism and put-downs. There are 2 kinds of criticism. One is useful evaluative criticism that says, you're not doing that terribly well, here's a more effective way. The other type is the judgmental put-down. When we offer evaluation in a caring way rather than a punishing, competitive, or depreciative way, we increase its constructive value and decrease the recipient's defensiveness. Both in giving evaluative criticism and in receiving it gracefully, suggest Nelson and Isbell, the heart and soul of the matter is recognizing our relationship and our common goals with the other person. Doing this dissolves defensiveness. We change an adversary relationship to a caring relationship. They suggest these options for responding to criticism. 1. Set limits. Stop an attack if it continues. I am feeling attacked. This is an appropriate time for direct assertion and stating your feelings. 2. Accept the criticism. When a criticism is legitimate, outright acceptance of it is an assertive response. 3. Disagree and self-affirm. When the criticism is based on false information, is a broad generalization, or involves value judgments with which you disagree. 4. Delay your response. Ask for time to think the message over and sort out your feelings about it. Handling put-downs. Sometimes it's important to unmask a depreciative judgment by reflecting back the feeling, as, I'm hearing you as feeling hostile this afternoon. Or I can confront your statement head-on by responding with my own feelings. I don't like that term and I'd like you to stop using it with me. Or, when you address me that way, I feel angry and want nothing to do with you. There are also subtler ways of handling put-downs. One is requesting clarification, an approach developed by Manuel J. Smith, who calls it negative inquiry. "You don't really like that outfit, do you?" says Margaret. "I don't understand. What don't you like about it?" replies Beth. That's requesting clarification. Notice that Beth shifts the focus by identifying Margaret's feelings as such. Margaret: "It's last year's style." "Oh, what don't you like about wearing older clothing that's still serviceable?" That's requesting clarification again. "Most of the women I know like to keep up with the latest fashion." I see that having stylish clothing is very important to you. So, requesting clarification involves repeating, "I don't understand. What's wrong with that?" until the critic has no effective reply left. It may even turn a nasty remark into a useful suggestion. Agreeing with the grain of truth is another way to diffuse criticism, developed by Smith, who called it fogging. You find something in the criticism to agree with and then side with the critic. At Judy's party, Al says, "You've got such a dull crowd here tonight." "The party is getting off to a slow start," replies Judy. "You haven't been any sparkler tonight yourself." "You're right. I'm kind of tired and I haven't really been here." "Well, I guess I'm a little tired too." Al's criticism is acknowledged and no one gets upset. These two approaches are effective when they're used together. To use them effectively, you may have to relax your concern about your self-image at the very point where the critic is asking you to be sensitive about it. A different approach is to dismiss and redirect. This involves denying the relevance of a put-down or irrelevant comment and redirecting this discussion to the main issue. How much I paid for the mower isn't the point. The point is that it shouldn't have stopped working in a week. Other assertive processes include repetition and exposing faulty logic. Expressing and accepting positive feelings. Giving and accepting appreciation, praise, and compliments is difficult for many of us. On either end of the exchange, we tend to get embarrassed and uncomfortable. Much of this embarrassment occurs when we save up the good things we want to say until the statement we want to make seems overwhelming. It's usually easier to give this many small strokes instead, those that refer to some specific act. "I loved the gentle way you responded to Mark's confusion this morning." When small appreciations like that are offered and received, they're less likely to embarrass the other person. Diffusing others' defensiveness. Your assertion may provoke a defensive response. You can deal with that, suggests Livingston, by reflecting it. For example, to the defensive person of, "You're getting pretty uptight about a fairly small matter, aren't you?" You might reply, "You think it's ridiculous for me to be concerned about this matter that seems trivial to you." Yes. In most cases, the reflection calms the other person down. Then it becomes possible to reassert. "I can understand that it seems like a small thing to you. Even so, it's very important to me that you tell me when you won't be able to finish something on time." End of chapter 10. End of part 2.